I will explain here bastards or whore sons who were in the highest positions, highest political or ruling positions in Serbia or Yugoslavia. So the Serbia was a creator of Yugoslavia. So let's first go to the definition. So bastard, Serbian to English. Okay, doesn't work. Definition. And if I choose Serbian, so bastard means, one of the meanings is kopile, which is in Serbian someone who doesn't know who his father is. So I found another possible translation, which is translation from Serbian to English, which is often. It's not. Often is something else. So this is first. This is first definition. The second is, I learned this word yesterday. So kopile again. The way it's translated here in Serbian means someone who doesn't know his or her father. So it might sound impossible, but one, two, three presidents of Serbia or Yugoslavia were adopted. I don't know if they probably didn't know who their real fathers were, because they were prepared for that role by communist intelligence, common intelligence. So the first guy is this one, Josip Broz Tito, who was lifelong president of Yugoslavia, and this is from Daily Mail. So this guy was responsible, is stated here, more than 500,000 people, for death. 500,000 people. I won't go into details about the crimes he is responsible for, but I will just say that most of the people who are victims of this monster, so this guy was a moron. He wasn't able to properly learn Serbian even in his I don't know, like 70s or 80s. I don't know how old he was when he died. He was a pervert. He officially he was married like, I don't know, like 5 times, something like that. And again, most of his victims were Serbs. And what is really shocking, some of those victims were even minors, because they are sent to it was the end of the Second World War, and those kids were sent to the battlefield, and most of them died there. So these were 16 to 17 year old kids, and that this didn't happen in any other state of Yugoslavian Federation or Yugoslav Federation. I know which one is correct grammatically. So nobody knows to this day who his real father is. And for instance, this was his lover. She was Vlah. So the Vlachs is a minority in national minority in Serbia. These are Romanian people from Romania. Originally, they were native people, but they mixed with Asian tribes who broke here in Balkans, and the natives became basically lost their identity. So that was his during the Second World War. So that's her again, and they were famous for making love loudly. So she died, I think, from some disease, and he buried her. I mean, this is really pathology. He buried her right in his backyard, his president home or household, in his backyard next to his horse. And the closest family of her, I cannot remember what was her name, because I don't know what, I never heard of this newspaper, so I don't want to go somewhere to some location, web location that's not secure. The closest family, her closest family, refused to take her remains and to properly bury her. This is how her closest family respected her. So again, this guy was a pervert, and to this day nobody knows who he really is and who his real father is. And he was president from 1945 to 1981 when he died. Okay, that was about him. So next one is this is video from my channel, and this is about, so I'm just opening this to show that it's the same address. And I didn't want to wait for this to open. So next one is, so this is my channel. This is in the description here. So next one is former president of Yugoslavia, I think, Vojislav Koštunica. So this guy, he was president after Milosevic era, and it turns out that he is also a bastard or horse son. That video that I just closed was a video of an email, and this is basically the content of email. from time to time. So this was the content of email. I had problems with sending it, so I sent it as RTF document, rich text format document, on 16th of June this year. So if I look for Koštunica, which is his surname, it's I asked here, who was addressed here? I think this part was sent to the doctors. Yeah, this is the part which was sent to the doctors. But I mentioned here I mentioned him not really in the context, but this was something regarding this part is regarding the credibility of some people, and because this has to do with some dancer. I mean, he's I think Tsigani or half Tsigani. Indian social group from India which was below outside of this caste system in India, so they were lowest of the lowest in the social hierarchy. So or hierarchy, what's right pronunciation? So this was something that had to do with the pandemic. So I just compared credibility, because there's one guy here in Serbia who is a journalist and author. He writes books. He is popularizing secret societies. Some people claim he's in Masonry. He's Freemason, and he presents himself as the one who the man who knows, I guess, important information. So I compared that dancer with that guy. It was just comparison regarding credibility. I mean, of course, it was a joke. And then I started explaining how this guy who presents himself as a man who knows how dangerous he is, because he's a false opposition. He's just manipulating the facts. And I was referring to this interview. Although this interview is about, I mean, Koštunica is mentioned, but it's more about the other guy who is former Serbian Prime Minister, Zoran Đinđić. Although Koštunica is also mentioned, but briefly, in this video. So this is that guy, Dejan Lučić, as said here, as written here. So I was just comparing credibilities. Again, that was some sort of a joke in that manner. And yeah, so this guy mentioned in this interview, before this moment, I think it was like a minute or before that, so he mentioned Koštunica and said that Koštunica changed his surname from Damjanović or something like that. So Damjanović or something like that. I don't know what his real surname was. So he said in that interview that I'm referring her. So this guy Zlatanović is the host here. That's him. So he said in this interview that Koštunica changed his surname because of his father, who was comi judge and responsible for death of probably thousands of Serbs. So this information that this guy Dan Lucic gave here is wrong. So he didn't change his surname. According to information I have, the one who changed his surname are actually or is actually Comi intelligence at that time. So this was the time after Second World War. So he's manipulating the facts here, and the other information I have about Koštunica, Vojislav Koštunica, is that this guy, this Comi monster, Comi judge, was not his real father. And the reason why I'm showing this, so I addressed a lot of people here, and if I go down there, so this is I addressed his Vojislav Koštunica's political party. So okay, I need to I just want to show so this is Koštunica's party. They changed the logo. So I addressed them in this email, and I asked because they called him unofficially the someone who is not informed, because he said in one interview about some important thing that he's not informed. So I asked his political party to ask Koštunica to give statement about those facts that I mentioned, that he's stepson of that Comi judge, a monster, who is Damjanovic, who is responsible for death of hundreds and probably thousands of Serbs who were against communists, and the graveyards, actually the areas of graves, because those graves were not, didn't have any mark. So these were secret graves, because those killings, they were going straight to the fire squad, and these trials were very short, and those areas where those poor people that were shot, were buried, were called dog graveyards or dog cemeteries. That's how communists called them. And most of them were either non-Serbs or were half Serbs, so half Croatian, half Serbs, and so on and so on. So, and if they were Serbs, they were in most of the cases immigrants or emigrants from either Croatia or Bosnia or something like that, some other state of Yugoslavia. For instance, my great grandfather was instantly convicted, because he was working in the church at that time. So that was, I think, 1947. I still have that decision of common monsters. So, judging by their surnames, they were immigrants, because when somebody immigrates, that person, I mean, according to psychology, doesn't feel that new home in most of the cases as his home. So, according to some unwritten rules, only after fifth generation the descendant of immigrants start, of course, under certain conditions, if they don't marry strictly within their group. So after fifth generation they become sort of a native there, because they cut all the ties with their previous homeland. This is what I heard, and from my experience, judging by the people I know, this is simply true in most of the cases. In some rare cases it's not true. So, at least for my family, for my great grandfather, that was true. So, both of those people who were questioning him, he was promoting church, and he was instantly convicted. I think he went to jail for some time. Both of them have actually had, because they're probably dead now, had surnames that are not from this area, from Serbia. And as many people know, who are familiar with the war in former Yugoslavia in the 90s, so those states, former Yugoslavia states, are now places where there are almost no Serbs, and most of those people who are now in power here, immigrants, are descendants of deserters, people who ran away or avoided going to the battlefield in the war. So, traitors. Okay, so again I ask here political party of Vojislav Koštunica to give statement if this is true, if it's true that he's not real son of that common monster judge, and that common intelligence changed his real surname from Damjanović to Koštunica, so his stepfather surname, in order to avoid any sort of revenge or something like that by the family of those people who this common monster judge convicted, and basically that was that. Okay, so I also asked Koštunica to give statement if he, this is something that I read from newspapers, if he signed the decision that I think several hundreds of members of KLA, Kosovo Liberation Army, previously in the list of terrorist group until 1999, when there was a war in Kosovo and Metohija, so not Kosovo, but Kosovo and Metohija. It is said that after that war, when the Milosevic ruling ended, Slobodan Milosevic ruling ended, and Koštunica became president. He signed that together, of course, with NGOs. One of them was UCOM. So he signed that decision that monsters and murderers from KLA who murdered, I don't know how many Serbs, and tortured them and massacred them, he signed the decision to release them from the jail. So hundreds of them are released, and then they went back to Kosovo to kill more Serbs, because after that war a lot of Serbs are still being killed. Okay, is there something else? And of course, these who were released, these were the extremists. Yeah, I also mentioned here Milan Milutinovic. He was also president during Milosevic era, but I found an article that he did similar thing, but that article cannot be found anymore. So I asked him as a politician to confirm that. Okay, so there is one more instance. Yeah, so another instance of this email where another part of that email where I mentioned Koštunica is these two. So the first is for the editor of this. Sorry. Yeah. Of this, I don't know if it can be seen here. So Radio Serbona. I asked editor of that radio to explain why he didn't react when the historian who mentioned the thing with Koštunica and his changed surname, why he didn't react, because that historian called Radovan Damjanovic just briefly mentioned that as if it's something completely something that's completely not important, and it's a major deal. And I also asked this guy Radovan Damjanovic why he didn't elaborate on the. So this is the guy Radovan Damjanovic, he's historian, and he mentioned here that some guy asked him because he has a similar surname as Koštunica's stepfather. Some guy asked him if he is some sort of relative to Koštunica, and he said that he isn't. This is what can be heard here. There is a part from that video. I just recorded the part where he said that. So I recently uploaded this. So when that guy asked him if he is some sort of relative to Koštunica, he said he's not, because the surname was actually Damjanovic, not Damjanovic. And this is everything he said about that very, very important topic. So I asked them here, but none of them answered. And I know that they received the email because one guy from the agency for medicines that are giving license to certain medicines, he didn't answer, but what was his name, Zelic or something like that, and he didn't answer. Of course, he ignored me because I asked him some very difficult questions. Here, maybe I can find a place. But before that, I just need to finish this thing with Koštunica. So I asked this historian. He's probably the most popular historian here in Serbia. I asked him the same question as this editor of Radio Srbona, and I asked him some other things about the old, I don't know if I can call it alphabet, called Bukvica, from that contained 49 letters, and what he's showing 666, this thing with thumb and index finger. He was showing that multiple times. What that means, I cannot believe that he doesn't know what it means. And he's mocking of the church, what it means, because he presenting himself as this historian as a patriot, and he's doing that, which doesn't make sense. But I need to go to this guy that I mentioned from the agency for what? For the agency for medicines. So I cannot find it. No, it's not there. So that guy is, I think, Zelic. But anyways, I won't go into details because I will. I don't need this anymore. Or maybe I will play it. To play that, I will play that part where he mentioned that. So, anyways, that guy who is sort of a PR of that agency in Serbia, Alims, called Alims, he ignored me, but he forgot to remove me from to remove my email from some sort of notification that he won't be. He will be on, I don't know if this is sick leave or business trip or something like that. So I received that, meaning that he received my email. He's just ignoring me. So this also means that these other people, this historian and editor, radio editor, received that as well. So I will now play this. Okay, so what he said, although you don't need to know Serbian to understand some parts. So he mentioned Koštunica here, can be heard Koštunicin, which is a possessive form, and he mentioned here Damjanovic, but also mentioned L or N. So instead of Damjanovic, instead of this J, which is pronounced as Y in Serbian, it is here is according to this historian. So in the original surname of Koštunica's stepfather, here instead of J was L, which is a combination of, at least in Latin alphabet, combination of L and J, and this is that letter in Cyrillic. Or instead of that J was N, which is combination of N and J in Latin, or it's this letter in Cyrillic. So this is what this historian claimed, and it can be heard that he then, I will not play it, he then started talking about some other topics, so he avoided talking, elaborating on this very important matter. Okay, see, so so he then continued with some other topic. The question was if Serb can be communist. So it can be. I don't know if he talked about Koštunica later in this episode of radio show. This is a talk show called People Knows. People Knows Nothing. So I don't know if he mentioned again Koštunica in this episode of the talk show, but since he didn't answer, I guess he didn't mention. So the next up is former Prime Minister of Serbia who was murdered, shot, Zoran Đinđić. So this guy, he was murdered in 2003. I think in March or something like that. So I created a video recently where this guy who is leading Serbian sort of independent intellectual, he explained here from this point in time, so 4802, that Zoran Đinđić was a male whore or male prostitute or gigolo in Germany, where he was studying. He was studying there in what was some social sciences, social pseudosciences. So this is the video on my channel that's recently uploaded. So I won't go into details. Here I will play this part where this guy Dejan Lucic that I mentioned now talks about about Zoran Đinđić. This is something that I really didn't know. So he explained here that Zoran Đinđić is also a bastard or whoreson, or in Serbian Kopile. So the guy who presented himself as his real father is not his real father. I think he was also Komi, high rank military officer, so Komi. And this is something you hear. I mean, if you don't know Serbian, you won't understand, but you just need to see the reaction of this journalist who is the host, that he was also surprised when heard that Zoran Đinđić is a what this guy said here. Yeah, he said that he's a Catholic, and then explained that his official father was not his real father. Okay, so I'll play this and maybe comment on if there is something more to comment.
Politički Božić sa
So this guy, journalist, asked how come that Zoran Đinđić was a Catholic, because nobody know that. I don't know if anyone wrote about that. Okay, I will. Yeah, this is something. This is something that recently surfaced. Actually, not recently, 2010. What was that? Well, this is something from diaspora, from immigration. And some so they're claiming here that, and this guy is also claiming that Zoran Đinđić's father was actually Alija Izetbegović, the leader of Bosnian Muslims during the. So this actually dated. I haven't read this. So this dated from 2010. This information. Zoran Đinđić is a Catholic. It started from diaspora, so immigration. This is probably American immigration, so Serbs who immigrated to America. And of course, this is a portal of Bosnian Muslims. They're obviously proud about this fact. Yeah, so most of the information about this, except for this and this, is from this year. So this recently surfaced, and this was the first. So diaspora first blow the whistle on that. So guys who are immigration in abroad. So who immigrated from Serbia either to work there, work abroad, or were dissidents, political dissidents, and so on. So they are the first one, according at least to this short search. I won't go to another page, search page. So I missed this. I missed this, and this journalist also missed that. So this guy is so Freemason, obviously was chosen to be a spokesperson about this subject. This is how secret societies actually work. This is to boost their credibility and for some other reasons, like control of knowledge and so on and so on. So there's a really deeper meaning to that, but I won't go into details. So this guy said after he asked him if he was how come that Zoran Đinđić was a Catholic. So he said that his father was actually his stepfather, his official father, so to speak. I mean, quote, official. And then I will continue playing this. He will then say that Đinđić's mother, when she was pregnant, went to the home of Izetbegović family. So Alija Izetbegović, this guy was, for people who are into geopolitics, was a leader of, so there's he praying, was leader of Bosnian Muslims. And if you really want to see who he was, you need to watch two movies, documentaries. First is this one. I need to go to YouTube. What is this? Well, let's switch to pictures. Here it is. Let me see, 59:10. This is Daily Motion. This is Sutirović. This guy is a historian, I guess. That's it.
Mi smo mala.
What? Oh, this has like 4 minutes more than, because this guy added some his own stuff. So this is that movie, Srebrenica, a town betrayed. I don't know who was the Norway. Okay, so some journalists from Norway created this movie, and it explains what really happened with Srebrenica. Of course, there is some sort of bias, but I am going to show here one interesting piece. So it says here that Izetbegović is buried as a war hero in 2003. But people in Srebrenica doesn't like him. I won't say why. You need to watch the movie, this movie. The people who are the people from Srebrenica say he's responsible for what happened. Well, this is also questionable, but I don't see here that part that the evidence, the pieces of evidence related to his illegal activities during that war in the 90s. These pieces of evidence are lost in Hague. That should be here, but it looks as if someone removed it. I remember that. Amazing. Okay, so let's go here. This is uploaded by this guy who is a Serbian historian. But he didn't add any description. Okay, so let's go back to the movie. I will try. So this guy is ex.
The column of men was a mix.
NSA. Maybe he still works as NSA. Here is Schindler. So he's Jewish. He's former. So former chief analyst NSA. He said here, okay, I won't tell the story because people need to watch that movie, but that documentary, people who are interested. Although there is some bias, of course. Or maybe this part is from another movie. There's another documentary. Okay, so I cannot find that part where it is stated that evidence against Alija Izetbegovic is destroyed in Hague due to some computer problem, which is rubbish. Okay, so the second documentary, but Alija Izetbegovic is Sarajevo Ricochet. Or Ricochet. So there is only one upload. Actually two with some sort of 10, 10, 10 minutes, 10 minutes, 10, 10, 10. So this is probably the same duration. So this is I don't know who. It's well, actually, I didn't know that. I didn't know this. So these are the same journalists who create Srebrenica, a town betrayed. So this is basically about jihadism in Bosnia. So this is a huge problem there because a lot of jihadists, extremists was left there. They still live there. They practically cannot, don't know what to do with them. So they're causing a lot of problems there, and there are even documentaries from, I think, Sky News, and even as far as I remember, BBC. So this movie, basically documentary, talks about that, about illegal funds, black funds, black funding, and so on and so on. So here they are. So these are Serbian heads, cut off. Of course, no one wanted to show that. This is a father of one of those poor people. He said that he still didn't find his son's head. And this was around 2010, so 20 years after the war. This is a picture of his son. That's him. So again, this NSA guy. Okay, here's Zalia. So according to these theories, I won't say conspiracy theories because I don't believe in that. I'm not using that term coined by satanists and so-called elite, quoted. Check out this. This guy is Serb. These are Serbs who are arrested. And this is very, very interesting. So this is United Nations vehicle smuggling jihadists to Bosnia. So, and they're happy because they are going to cut Serbian heads. This proves that United Nations is actually the so this guy, I don't know who he was. He was some sort of he was related somehow to Dayton, politician, something like that. And when this journalist, author of this documentary, started asking some difficult questions, he simply, Anthony Lake. some sort of advisor to Clinton. When this journalist started asking some important, difficult questions, he simply stopped answering questions and said he need to go. So he pretends he doesn't. We need to stop. This is what he said. So he said he didn't know anything about Mujahedeens before before Dayton. So he learned that after Dayton, which is a lie, of course. So I want show any more of that because I want people to watch them themselves. So this is a very important part. So it says here, so these guys who were in Bosnia were responsible for 9/11, although of course I don't believe in 9/11. So it says here, the man who opened the door of Bosnia to Al Qaeda and the terrorists died in 2003. This is his funeral. Again, because these are the same authors of the previous documentary. So President Ali Izetbegovic was buried as a hero, war hero, of course. So he died before the Hague Tribunal. It says here Hague, I mean it's translated as Hague Court. Let's play it a bit.
Stedet en tiltale mot ham som øverstkommanderende.
So it's Norwegian language, if I spelled it correctly. So it says here he died before Hague Tribunal. Before Hague Tribunal filed a indictment, if this is how it is properly said, or before indictment against him is written. And with that indictment he will be made responsible for crimes of jihadists in Bosnia. And there's a theory, again I won't use the term conspiracy theory because it is coined by satanists and so-called elite and other morons. It's a very stupid term. So there's a theory that both he and Franjo Tudjman, the president of Croatia during the war in the 90s, and of course Slobodan Milosevic, that all of them are murdered in order to prevent them from telling the truth, because all of them were foreign assets, trained for what they did by some of them turned against their masters, as I mean, at least it looked like that, like Milosevic did, Slobodan Milosevic. And there was a story, I don't know if this is true, that they were actually exposed to radiation, at least Tudjman and Ali Izetbegovic, when they went to some sort of meeting. I don't know if that was in Brussels or in United States, but that was the story at a certain point in time after after the war was ended. So actually, at the time when they died, after they died, so again, by writing that an indictment against Ali Izetbegovic, he would be, if that was written, he would be responsible for crimes of jihadists in Bosnia, and the documents. This is very important. So it says here the documents that points to his involvement. So involvement of Ali Izetbegovic in those crimes disappeared. This is literally what's written here. I mean, this is the translation. I don't know if it's true. It's correct. I don't know if this is correct. So officially, the reason for disappearance of those documents are problems with information system, so with computers, with database, which is rubbish, of course. So this is his grave. He was born in 1925, and of course the authors of this documentary said that this is the way how Ali Izetbegovic escaped, avoided any responsibility, and avoided answering difficult questions about connection of Islamists and Al-Qaeda. And this is the guy from, he's Muslim, Fazlo from Srebrenica, and he also appeared in this other movie, which was recorded before this. So Srebrenica, town betrayed. So he officially said here that those politicians didn't care about the people, they only care about their political and material goals. And of course, TWRA is mentioned here. It is, I think, organization that's related to. I need to check on this. No, it's not that. It's related to some Islamic country, United Arab Emirates or something like that. So TWRA and their founder Fateh El Hassanein, wherever it is spelled, went to Turkey in 1994, Istanbul. He was under investigation for money laundering and weapons smuggling. This is the guy. Izetbegovic gave some sort of Medal of Honor to Fateh and TWRA, which provided money for, this is Izetbegovic's son, who is now, I think, president of Bosnia and Herzegovina. which is creation of Serbian creation, because Serbs were the majority. And of course the other thing which is, I think, not mentioned here is that Bosnian Muslims were part of they had cooperation with the Nazi during the Second World War. So there is certain bias here. This is not mentioned. There was infamous Hajar division. They were mostly killing women, children, and old people. So the people who cannot fight. But let's continue with the end of this documentary. So again, Izetbegovic gave some sort of medal of honor to this guy. He's a smuggler and international criminal. So this guy, Fateh Noli, today, I mean, this is around 2010. This is recorded in, so Fateh now lives in Sudan. There's some geopolitical rubbish. So civil war in Bosnia was not just Bosnia's war. John, I don't know who he is, probably some of the associates of the authors. John determined that in 40 terrorist attack of Al-Qaeda, of course I don't believe in that story of Al-Qaeda. This is CIA operation, Black Op. So in 14 terrorist attack of Al-Qaeda, veterans from Bosnia took part. So terrorist attacks in Iraq are also connected to Al-Qaeda in Bosnia. So a lot of hotspots here. So traces from Sarajevo are clearly seen in not just in United States, but in the whole world. Okay, so I suggest people watch these two documentaries, but again, some very important information are missing from this. So there is certain bias, of course, because of course this is not surprising, because one of the authors of associates of those authors was that Bosnian Muslim, so he would not be happy if some pieces of information were mentioned, that they definitely needed some sort of insider. So I partly understand why they haven't mentioned that, and of course they haven't mentioned those theories about 9/11 and so on and so on. But nevertheless, there are a lot of useful information in these two documentaries. It is possible that they are some sort of controlled opposition, but again, those information that nobody can deny that nobody can deny that well, this is some rubbish. Nobody can deny that this again has some valuable information. So let's see if I covered everything. So I went to other topic, but again it was important to show who his father, real father was, so who was real father of Zoran Đinđić. And let's see if there is something else to hear here, okay. So what this guy Lucic mentioned here in that other part of the story of Đinđić is connection to Izetbegović family. So Đinđić's mother, when she was pregnant, went to and she was Catholic after her mother, and according to this guy Lucic again, so Đinđić married his wife. So I explained also who his wife is in that video that I uploaded 2 days ago, that I showed here. So I'm going to these details, and he didn't say explicitly that Ali Izetbegović was father of Zoran Đinđić, but it's a sort of the possibility that is the most logical. And I think he didn't mention anything else, anything important. So I thought that these information are fresh, but this is something obviously old, from first appeared in 2010. Okay, this was about Zoran Đinđić, murdered, executed Serbian Prime Minister after Milosevic era. And the last one is current president of Serbia, voted president, Aleksandar Vučić. I created a video. This will I will add the link to that video in the description. So this is obviously there are a lot of pictures and information about that. So supposedly this is his father. This guy, he's an Albanian journalist. So I won't go into any more detail because there is a separate video on this. This is his official father, official quoted. This is president. They call him because of his lips, jeweler, jeweler, the one who jewels, and as I explained that in video about him and his father, so he's the I think fourth of those important political figures. I mean political figures who are in the highest position and are bastards or wh0resons. I explained that in video about him, why obviously the foreign factory is installing those bastards to lead Serbia, and the reason is I explained that, but I don't remember if I had a problem with mic. It was not turned on. So the reason why they are doing this, why they are installing those people, those bastards and wh0resons, is because they want to humiliate Serbia, as it would be impossible for anyone who cannot prove who his real father is, and after all these accusations, you can see how many pictures are here. This is his brother of the president quoted. So I reported in 3 mails this thing with this is basically false identity. It's a crime in crime law of Serbia. So it would be impossible for anyone who cannot prove who his real father is to pass the security clearance to even clean the toilets in some important state institution. But those people, I mean 4 of them, were presidents or prime ministers. So because again there are a lot of information on the internet about his real father, he answered that, but not directly. He only said, I think it was recently, he said that people are talking about his mother. People are saying that his mother is a whore, but he didn't address who his real father is, which is really suspicious. And people who are into genetics claim that it is more than obvious that this is his real father. I mean, even the haircut. And this guy is not just journalist, he's way more than that. He's like people in geopolitics say, element, someone who works against the country where he lives. So he lives in Belgrade. But I won't go in more details. As I just said, I have a separate video on this. I will just finish with something really important regarding him and of course all the other people who are whose identity was false. So everything they signed is illegal because they illegally there. So they are installed to humiliate Serbia, because if you don't know if you don't know the real father of some person, that there is a possibility that father of that person is in this case the worst enemy of the state. So this is why they cannot pass security clearance, and this is mentioned movie with Angelina Jolie called what was the name? Salt. Yeah, Salt. At the end of the movie, there are supposedly Russian spies who has the same story, who are installed using the same trick. So their parents died in a car accident or some other accident, and they are adopted. So this is why security clearance includes the family tree for at least 5 generations. I mean, this is how it should be. So by installing these bastards, their masters did a huge favor. So you heard again that alarm of ER vehicle. So by installing them, they wanted to humiliate us, to humiliate Serbian Serbs, but they did, as I said, a huge favor to us, because everything they signed, those bastards signed, is illegal, because they're illegally there, especially that agreement in Brussels and Washington agreement these guys signed, and so on and so on. And not just that, the other people who signed that, like Ivica Dacic, he is Croatian and a pedophile. He was now at the top of a pedophile scandal, which was basically, what's the right term, scrubbed, put under the rug, because it turned out the American ambassador is also involved. So this guy, a pedophile, was also one of the people who signed, one of the traitors who signed the Brussels agreement. And as Serbia was involved, this is official information, information by pro-Western media in Serbia. Since Serbia was involved in illegal arms trade since 2002, and it's impossible that he didn't know, because he was at the highest position, highest positions in the government. He was the closest associate of Slobodan Milosevic, but practically betrayed him. He was on the blacklist, United States blacklist, and was suddenly removed, probably because he started to cooperate. And so even if the signature of that bastard I mentioned, so-called president of Serbia, is not illegal, this the signature of this guy is illegal, because he's involved in is also involved in that illegal arms trade and all the other cases of international organized crime, and I found 35 so far. He's involved in most of those cases, because he was part of the government, the top of the government at that time, during that period of time. So again, I need to repeat this because it is really important. By installing those bastards and people who, traitors, and God knows who they really are, whose sons they really are, by installing them, those pieces of shit and morons from foreign Western and Western European embassies and their governments did a huge favor to us, and because they lost credibility over Epstein scandal, they have zero power now, and they will need to pay for what they did to Serbia, and probably to a lot of other Eastern European countries. I'm not talking about other countries because that's their problem. I mean, I'm too far away from them to worry about that. Okay, so that would be about bastards and wh0resons that were in the highest political and ruling position in Serbia or Yugoslavia.